Hello there, this is Warpath 1985 speaking, and in day 9 of 12 Days of War, I shall be discussing the Transformers Unite Warriors Constructicons / Devastator. In this case, I'll be talking about the legs that form Devastator, that being Scrapper and Mixmaster, and the general leader of also the Constructicons as well, that being, Scrapper. So, for characterization, I guess, for the both of them, obviously Constructicons in general are very popular characters. They're very popular in the Transformers fandom. And by extension, most of them have appeared in most versions of G1, which is once again, by extension, yada yada yada, probably mean just G1. However, once again, all these different depictions also have them different ways, and they also portray the characters and different general unique interpretations to kind of mix and match their general characterization that we see in the G1 cartoon and Mortal comic book. Because yes, in both of them, they are technically rebuilt on Earth. However, in both of them, by exception technically, with the Marvel comic books, because in Marvel comic books they are just built of the cartoon. They existed before them being rebuilt on Earth, by them being the Cybertronians that built the Crystal City, which obviously they then destroyed because they were controlled by Megatron. Once again, that's pretty much the oversimplification of everything, but also in general, the Constructicons history is so confusing to the point that even I, a person who has been pretty much well versed in the general lore of the franchise, is still very much confused about their general history. Not to mention, the Constructicons' general relationship with their allies as Nemesis, but still technically their arch nemesis, Omega Supreme, is still confusing after the whole event of the establishment of the Cybertronian Empire. So yeah, even more confusing, even though yes, in the artwork that was included with Net Wars Devastator, they're all shown in a big old construction project where they're rebuilding a new Crystal City, this time I believe on either Planet Master or Earth, I believe. I can't really quite recall which planet they're rebuilding this new city on, but generally that's all we know for their general purpose in the Cybertronian Empire. However, when it comes to the toys themselves, both of them have received several new updates and etc. throughout the years. However, I much prefer the Unite Warriors versions of their figures over all the other ones, even though yes, they are still very flawed. I just prefer them not only just because of yes, they are oversized for the combined mode. The combined mode in general is more accurately sized to how they were portrayed in the cartoon, especially in Transformers the movie, where they're portrayed as these much more gigantic figures. In the case of other interpretations where they're much smaller. So it makes more sense to me, as a person who also owns Siege Omega Supreme, that they're this size. Even if it's Robo mode, doesn't really work out in the end. Now, for the figures themselves, I'll first be talking about, their original counterparts first for comparison, because I'd rather not be talking about the rest of Constructicons because they're so big and they're hard to fit all in the frame. Now, as you can see, I only have the, Talkinator set, which consists of Motor Mix and Motor Load. And as you can see, the original molds are pretty small in comparison to the much larger Combative Wars / Net Warriors mold. But for the figures themselves, first talking about Scrapper himself. When it comes to his Net Warriors figure, he only comes with one singular exclusive accessory, that being his blaster, which is based off of his original blaster, both from the cartoon and the original toy. Along with the Devastator chest wing bits, which can form as a sword for Scrapper. Like so. However, there's no storage for them, in vehicle mode, unlike the original figure where it was. But for articulation of the figure, it's actually a lot better in comparison to that of the combined version because it has new joints and etc. However, still not the greatest in comparison to much more modern figures as well. However, he does have a ball jointed head, a multi-jointed shoulder, which has a butterfly both forward and back, and also can go outwards like so. It's pretty articulated overall. He has a bicep cut as well, a very nice almost over 90-degree bend in the elbow. It's technically over 90 degrees, but kind of in a sense. It's kind of hard to explain. Has inwards bend at the wrist, which is due to the transformation. Has very nice kick both forward and back due to the transformation also. Has a very nice knee bend and ankle tilt, which is slightly hampered due to the kibble. It's back here. Technically not really technically kibble, but just the sculpt in general just is slightly hindered due to that. But overall, he's pretty articulated for a 2015 figure, as he basically has the same articulation as the new figure, with the exception of, I believe, more range at the ankles, I believe. So yeah. But for Mixmaster, he is much less articulated in general, although once again, due to this being the Unite Wars version, he's still a lot more articulated than his original Combined Wars version. For his combiner weapon, because for mention, Scrubber has combiner weapons as well, but in general, he comes with a combiner weapon, that being the chest piece of Devastator, which forms his little gun here. It's kind of supposed to be much of a larger version of the acid launcher he has on his head, essentially, which is pretty cool. He also has a exclusive blaster, which is once again based off his G1 / visual figure blaster, which is once again pretty cool. However, for the figure itself, he does have, once again, improved articulation over the original Combined Wars figure. However, it is also still very limited. As you can see right here, he has a very limited backwards at the, well, legs, but has a very nice kick, but is loose. This is a universal problem with all rare copies, really, because, well, there's a lot of weight in the leg. They just suck. He has a very nice spread, very nice knee bend, really good ankle articulation, has very good shoulder articulation overall. It is limited due to the kibble once again. However, he has no technically bicep cut, but he has a very nice double jointed elbow articulation. It does technically have a bicep up here, but it's not that very useful in a sense. It's really more function as a wristful than anything. He also has a ball jointed head, which is much easier to move around than you think it would be. Although that is all, however, I must mention he is very back heavy due to the oil tanker being facing upward, not upwards but downwards, set upwards. The virtual figure was facing upwards, which means diagonal need center, gravity mass, etc. It's focused more here, so it means that it's not have that bad of a back heaviness in comparison to new-ish Combined Wars mold. Back then it was new, but now it's kind of old. But yeah, that's all for the both of them. I think I did forget to mention that Scrapper does have very nice spread as well, if I mentioned that. But in general, for transformation, however, for both of them, it's actually pretty easy. Pretty much just compress the legs together, like so. Put this up. That's how you get the back half. This little, I don't want to say excavator, but kind of like earth mover truck. Dump truck? Shovel truck? Keep pronounce actual correct name. But in general, with that, just unplug this. And yeah. There's Scrapper in his vehicle mode. He does have a storage spot for his blaster here. Just plug it in here like so. Smaller hole. First on the other side of the little posterior smokestacks, but yeah. There he is in his little... I can't remember what's technically called. It's not like a dump truck. Neither bulldozer either, because that's bone crusher. But yeah, this is articulated as well. Be curious. It's pretty cool. There's no worries, as there is like a little clip here that plugs into here, which is technically reinforced in comparison to that the Combined Wars version, because Combined Wars version was infamous for being very easy to break off, because this version has much denser plastic, and also same goes for the scoop. So yeah, that means that the figure is much less prone to breakage. However, once again, as before, these parts have no external storage point, unlike the original one, which is a great shame. Which, speaking of the original one, once again, it's like a very simple transformation. See right here, very big size difference between the two. But for Mixmaster, however, another figure with pretty easy transformation overall. It just involves you just to essentially put this in, squeeze it, squeeze these pieces together, like so. Just plug that in, shift these down. There you go. Now Mixmaster is in his mixing truck mode. And as you can see, once again, very simple transformation and also very simple vehicle mode. And infamously, if most people tend to forget, Mixmaster did have this weird quirk with him, which also I forgot to mention. This is a storage piece point here with this blaster, where his vehicle mode was infamously turned to a much more, particularly not necessarily modern, but reversed mixing truck, which is okay in the sense that it is a unique update. However, in general, it does clash with other figures, which are generally, relatively speaking, still genuine accurate, with exception for a few. But although yes, with the inverse figure, they do preface to have like this instead, even though yes, there's still like some details here that still imply that it's supposed to be that original Combined Wars intention, where it's supposed to be a reverse dump, not jump truck, but missing truck. But yeah, it is still kind of very weird. And for general comparison with like the G1 mold, which I'm trying to prepare here. Obviously, you understand kind of what I mean here, where once again it's supposed to be like this weird reverse mixing truck, because this is how it's supposed to technically be, but instead we got this. And yeah, that is just kind of weird looking. Now for combined mode, you first have to remove the blasters for both of the combined modes. You must also these around. Or scrapper. Put this in, bend it inwards. Just plug it in there. Zoom out a little bit. Put these out like so. Have like that. And flip around. I say like pumps off. Just fix that there. There we go. And flip around this little cab here. And there we go. There is Scrapper in his little leg form. But for Mixmaster, you must flip out these pieces here. Open this up, which first you have to like move these arms outwards. There we go. Open this, shift these inward slightly so you have clearance to move these pieces outwards. Like so. And just combine these two together. Put this in, plug it in, like so. Have it out like this. And there we go. There is Mixmaster and Scrapper in their leg forms. And with that, that's all for day 10 of 12 Days of War. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully I shall see you next time for day 11. Bye.